Hi, I'm Jordan Nemick, and I'm going to be talking about my experiences in the leadership community over the past year as a point of reflection. So, to start off, I'm going to talk about how leadership theory has affected my experiences this past year. Um, my leadership theory has really evolved over the past year and evolved in a really positive way. Coming in, I thought that you could only be a leader if it was a naturally born talent. And that's kind of how I was raised. You're a leader because, like, it's just natural for you. And so I just assumed that great leaders are just born with it. And I always kind of idolized them. But coming into college, I most identified with trait theory, which is just kind of that you're naturally born a leader. But then I realized that there's so many ways to be a leader, and I actually really enjoyed learning about all of the leadership theories. And now I would say that I most identify with servant leadership because that's what I want to identify with, and you can make yourself into the leader that you want to be. So I found that if you can learn to be a good servant and then you can learn to lead, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So now I would say that my leadership theory has evolved into more of a learned type of leadership that I never thought you could actually have. Moving on, I'm going to talk about how the social change model has affected me this past year. I think the way that I was most able to see the social change model lived out is through my praxis project. I was with Project Esperanza, which works with Haitian refugees in the Dominican Republic. And although I had a little bit of difficulty with my praxis project, just I don't really feel like I got to actually experience leadership. However, I got to experience a group setting and how the social change model works in a group setting. So there are three C's from the social change model that I really think I got to see lived out, and that's collaboration, commitment, and controversy with civility. So I realized that a successful project cannot happen without these three C's because these three C's are what got our group through Project Esperanza. So at first, it was really difficult for us to collaborate with one another because we didn't know one another. So we didn't even know how to communicate with one another. So how can you collaborate if you can't communicate? But as soon as we started to learn how each other worked and we learned how to communicate with one another, then collaboration came easier and we actually got to come together and create a successful project. Um, Secondly, I'm going to talk about commitment. So, commitment was really what another driving thing that got our group through our project. So, all of us were incredibly committed to the goal and the mission of Project Esperanza. We were behind Caitlin, who is the head of Project Esperanza, and really just got to work closely with her as much as we could because she's in the Dominican Republic. But without us being committed, we wouldn't have had any motivation. So that was really helpful. And I got to see what commitment really looks like when it's in a group setting. And lastly, controversy with civility. I think this is maybe the most important C and maybe the most important skill to learn as well. Uh, Controversy with civility is something that I think I personally really like to avoid. I like to avoid talking about controversy at all. But this project kind of forced us to talk about it because we had to get past the things that we didn't all agree on. And I think our group really grew in this area as it went on. So now I'm going to talk about someone this past year that I got to observe. And her name is Erin Spence. So I'm a part of an organization called Crew, which is a campus ministry at Virginia Tech. And she was my Bible study leader this past year. And so she is focused on change. She has a goal and a mission, and she's looking at changing a community of people, social change. And so getting to observe her leadership style was so influential for me this year. She exhibited all of these aspects of the social change model that I just talked about, which is collaboration, commitment, and controversy with civility. She was committed to our group. She showed up every single week, and she collaborated with her co-leader in a way that fostered an environment of mutual respect and comfortability. And lastly, she exhibited controversy with civility because I watched her have issues with other people, but she always created open conversations about these issues and made sure that they ended up on good terms and that they weren't afraid to talk about what was bothering them. Watching Aaron be a leader really helped me because I was learning all of these theories about leadership, and then I got to see someone living it out, and that was really cool to see the application of it. And I'll be in a similar position like her next year, so I really got to learn how to be a leader in that position. Lastly, I'm going to reflect on my worldview and how that changed based upon leadership this year. So I think I always idolized great leaders because they were so naturally gifted in leadership. That's what I always thought. Um, but this past year has opened my eyes to what it really means to be a leader. Learning about leadership and living in a community full of go getters has really shaped the way I see leadership. I've learned that life experiences and motivation really make a leader who they are, not some natural ability to lead. I now believe that everyone has the capacity to be a great leader, and that means that I also have the capacity to be a great leader. I found a lot of confidence in that. I've watched so many people in this community step into leadership roles in different organizations, and I have started to do the same thing. There are many different ways to lead on a campus like Virginia Tech. That's another thing that makes this community so awesome. We don't just stay in the safety of the RLC, but we all go out and lead elsewhere. Although I had a very difficult time experiencing actual leadership in the midst of my praxis project, it was still cool to see how a community was impacting a much larger community. There was a lot of frustration I experienced this past year when it comes to leadership, feeling like I wasn't really practicing it through my project. But when I was able to take a step back and put this e-portfolio together and really reflect, I realized that my worldview of leadership has changed a lot this year because of these experiences. It has changed in a really good way, and I'm thankful that I had this opportunity to grow. Thank you.